Good morning. This is Laura. I'm coming to you from Eat to Your Health with Carnivore. I wanted to go over some lab analysis that I've had done. Some people have reached out to me that had lab work done weeks into their carnivore journey, even some up to 6 months, which it gives you a snapshot, but it's really my whole thing with the labs is this, and I've said this prior to ever thinking about cholesterol or any of the other ones, is I've been a nurse for over 21 years. And the crazy thing to me is your body is like an engine. You're like a car. The longer you use things, the less efficient they're going to be. Your kidneys, your liver, it's just the way it is, especially if your environment is poor and if you're eating poorly. I mean, it's just the way it is. So what I find odd, and I tell this to my patients in the home, they're like, oh, did you see my blood pressure was 130/72? And I was like, you're 90. I would expect your heart muscle that it might be a little thicker from, kind of like your bicep. If you sit there and do this, how many times a day for 90 years, I would expect it to be a little higher. I don't know, maybe that's just common sense, but it doesn't seem to be in the medical world right now. So when you see lab ranges, that's the same for you if you are 16 or if you are 99. Like nothing's going to decrease how you do things during that time. Whatever. That's fine. So I just say, I think you need to be prepared when you go to your doctor. Hopefully you can find a doctor who's willing to get on board with you and work with you. After all, if you look at their little license hanging on the wall, which I'm not dogging them, but it does say practicing medicine. It does. And that's fine. They can't learn everything in school either, but I do expect them to continue educating themselves when they're out, just as a nurse does, just as a hairdresser, just as anybody does in their careers. You don't just go to school and that's the last time you worry about learning something. I wouldn't think. So I'll go over my labs. So the first set of labs I'm going to go over was when I had been carnivore probably 2.5 years, close to 3. And I had been keto for 28 years prior to that. So my journey started in 1991. So just to give you reference, I hadn't had sugars, any of that kind of stuff. I did try to eat vegetables during some of that time. I was always lean on the vegetables because they just do not, my body gets inflamed when I eat vegetables because the vegetables don't want me to eat them, and I'm fine with that. So I'm going to go over what they call a comprehensive metabolic panel, which checks your glucose, your kidney numbers, your liver numbers, things like that. It also checks like your electrolytes and stuff. So I will go over that. It doesn't go over all your electrolytes. So my glucose was 87, which is perfectly normal. And actually, I usually run much lower than that. This test, they told me not to fast. And I said, we always fast for lipids and stuff. And they said, oh, no, you don't have to anymore. Well, that's not true. So hemoglobin A1C, lipids, I would absolutely fast at least 12 hours prior to going. So anyway, glucose was normal. Creatinine, BUN, which are kind of your numbers that tell you what your kidneys are doing, how well they are doing, perfectly in the middle ranges on everything. Calcium, perfectly in the middle. Calcium is one of those that's very tight. There isn't a large range that they want you between. Alkaline, perfectly in the middle. AST and ALT, those are kind of liver enzymes that they're looking at, but that's not the best liver test that you want to have done if you're having any issues. Mine are perfectly in the middle ranges. So really all of those for me are in the perfect middle range. So then the cholesterol at that time, and I think I was 51 when this was done, was 216 for total cholesterol, which I don't care if it's 1,000, and I really don't. It's there for a reason. The liver produces 80 to 85% of what cholesterol is going through the body, and it was put there purposely by somebody to do what it does. So it's so important for the brain. The brain makes its own. but the brain is 60 to 65% fat. The myelin sheath, which is the coating around your nerves, is a phospholipid bilayer, 2 layers of fat. And your cell membranes, all of your hormones, or most of your hormones, are started by that. Your vitamin D absorption ability is done by cholesterol. So I think it's supposed to be there. And I don't think we'd still be here as society if we weren't supposed to have it, because we see metabolic diseases have really skyrocketed since the inception of low fat, take a cholesterol medicine. And there are people who are diabetic, who are metabolically sick, who have had strokes, heart attacks, stents, open heart. They do probably need to take a statin, not for the benefits of lowering cholesterol and decreasing that, but because some of them decrease inflammation in the blood vessels. And of course, if the tube is like this, anything going through is going to get stuck. But if you can get the inflammation out of it, it's going to free flow through there. But if people are willing to make a lifestyle change, then no, you don't need it. You don't. And I'm not a doctor, I'm a nurse. And you don't have to take this information. You should take this and go dig and look it up for yourself. My triglycerides at that time were 30. Of course, I was running and doing kickboxing constantly at this time. So that does help with your triglycerides and your LDL. My HDL cholesterol at that time was 58 and my LDL was 152, which I'm fine with. So then this year's labs, this was done fasted. This was pure carnivore. I had not had anything other than meat, salt. I don't think I was even doing eggs anymore at this point. So anyway, so I'll go over that. So the CMP on this one, glucose was 80. BUN, like I said, all of the numbers, and you can't see it because it's backwards unless you have a way of flipping it around, but I can put a copy of this, take a picture and put it out there if you guys want to look at it. Every one of the numbers is perfect. My cholesterol, which I'm happy to say, actually went to 270, and I do think that's good. If anybody out there can tell me why I shouldn't have my total cholesterol be 270, I would love to have that discussion. So let's see. So then my triglycerides were 52, which just shows that I was not working out quite as feverishly at the age of 52. HDL cholesterol 69, I'm fine with that. LDL was 194, which of course they have flagged as high also. But I did have them run particle size, which is another thing you can request. The particle size of mine are large and fluffy, and that's what you want. You don't want the small little fractionated. Those are what cause the issues. So I did do a ratio, which is your HDL and triglycerides. And I think they said you want to be under 1.5 if you're Caucasian. I think I was listening to Frederick the other day off of Hanging with the Browns and G. And I thought he said that African Americans was 2.0, but I'm not positive. It's a really good video to watch where he kind of goes over G's appointment with her doctor and her lab work. But anyway, so you can do a ratio of your HDL and your triglycerides. So what I did was I took mine and I divided them, and I came up with 0.75, which is showing metabolic health. It's showing that I'm not going to have a heart attack. And like I said, I did cardiac cath lab for years, and it wasn't chunks of cholesterol inside there. There is a little bit of cholesterol inside any blood vessel that has damage because it goes there to start the healing process. But I can tell you that when it's this thick, it isn't cholesterol at body temperature, which would be melted and moving. It's the calcium. So I can go into that at a later time about how to get the calcium out of your blood vessels and get it to your bones and your teeth, because your teeth are bones and they can regenerate. So I'm going to go over what they call a cardiac calcium scoring, and it is something you can request from your physician. Most insurances, at least last year, weren't paying for it. I'm not sure if they are this year. It was $75, and it was worth the information because, of course, my doctor was like, "Oh, your cholesterol is high. Are you scared?" And I said, "No. Didn't you take physiology like I did?" She's like, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Okay." So we went over like all the places that cholesterol absolutely has to be in your body and how over the last 40 plus years, everybody has went low fat, statins, all the junk, and we see all these diseases of all of those areas, brain, nerves, just go through the roof, which I know makes more money, and that's great for them, I guess. I prefer to have patients get better. That's just me. So what this is this is a coronary artery calcium scoring. So what they do is they put you in a CT. Mine was open. It's just the little circle that comes up around you. It's not like an MRI. It took maybe, I don't even think it was 10 minutes. What they do is they run that across and do a CT, and they look at your coronary arteries. And what they are looking for, as the test says, calcium. So I knew the girl that was doing my test. She knows how I eat. And they all think I'm crazy, but that's okay. And I said, "Oh, this is so odd that cholesterol is what causes heart disease. How come we don't call this test cardiac cholesterol scoring?" Seems odd. She goes, "Oh, because we're not looking for cholesterol. It's the calcium." And I said, "Exactly." So anyway, as we go. So they did my test, and basically, like I said, it looks like at the arteries to see how, how much you have. So I had 2 phone calls that day. One phone call was from that first department who did mine. And granted, I worked at this same hospital at the time. And they said, "Oh, we have your birthday down wrong." And I'm like, "You don't. I work here. My birthday is 1971. I'm not going to give my birthday." Anyway. And they said, "Oh, well, we're going to send this to Springfield, Illinois to have it looked at." And I said, "Am I dying? Do I have like an aneurysm, something starting?" And they're like, No, we'll just send it on." And about 2 hours later, I got a call from Springfield. And the guy's like, "Oh, they transcribed your birthday wrong." And I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure it's this in 1971. And he goes, "Oh." And he says, "Do you have a fax machine by you?" I said, "I do." And he says, "I'm going to fax your results and I want you to read it." And I said, "Okay." So the first page, I was like gobbledygook. It was over my head. I was like, now I've looked up a lot of those things to see what they stand for and what they mean. But the gist of it was that 150,000 people in the age range of 45 to 65 who had had the same cardiac calcium scoring done, I could not be compared to any. It says I could be compared to 0 because every one of my blood vessels calcium score is 0. So I can show you that. And like I said, it's backwards. You'll have to look. Every one is 0. So I said, "Wow." I said, "That is so odd." I said, "Because if you knew how I ate, that goes against everything you guys throw out on commercials, that's in the doctor's offices, the little pamphlets for cholesterol lowering medicine." I said, "I eat ribeye fat almost every single day on top of high amounts of protein, of fats. I do salt, which is, the devil. I don't do table salt, of course. I do Redmond's real salt. I haven't tried the Celtic salt. I saw that. Some people are doing that. I may try that, but I really like the Redmond salt." And I said, "And water." And that's what I do. And then I asked him, and he says, "Well, what you're doing is absolutely working because your previous calcium score was 700. Now, that was 4.5 years ago. So I was not carnivore at that time. I had been keto for the 28 years, which shows, I had pretty good health otherwise, but I was laying down calcium inside there. And being a woman means it was coming out of my bones and my teeth. My dentist, they're always like, "We don't really have plaque to scrape off. We'll see you in a couple years." Yeah. And my teeth have healed. because they're a bone and they're living. As long as you still have a root, it's a living organism and can heal just like our bones replenish themselves. Osteoblast and osteoclast. It's amazing how they work. So this gentleman, as I was saying, I was talking to him. I said, where did you take your training? Were you trained in the United States? And he says, oh no, I was trained in India. And I said, great. I said, so my question is, how much nutrition are you guys taught in your schooling over there? And of course he had went 20 years ago, and he said, ample amounts. And he said, what is taught over here is just based on pharmaceuticals because that's who runs the medical schools. And I said, I absolutely know that. I researched that many, many moons ago in 1991 and figured out when we got hijacked. And I said, you know, being a nurse, I know that there are times where a medication is what you have to have. You have to have a surgery. You have to have trauma care. Absolutely. And I said, in the United States, I think we have the best trauma emergency care. Slow may it be, but we do have it. And I said, but as for our day-to-day care of patients, I'm not going to put that in any doctor's hand because I think they've done a piss poor job for many, many years, many decades. And it's sad. I mean, there's always going to be those great ones out there that go against the grain, but pretty much if they work for an organization that is corporate, I can tell you at the end of the day, they're not looking at how many patients survived, got better, left here in a better state. It's how much income, what revenue did we make off of them? And that's sad to say, but it's true, which is why you will never see this girl working for corporate healthcare ever again. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I think that was it for today. I will be doing some videos probably Friday and Saturday. I have some different things I want to do and go over. If there's anything you want to see me, make that's carnivore that I don't already have videos made of, leave it in the comments. If you have questions, if you want me to look over your labs and give you my opinion, it's just an opinion, and kind of what has worked for me. I am somebody I do still take a few supplements. I take K2D3, and I can go over that if anybody wants to understand the reasoning behind that. But there are certain things I still do, even on carnivore, knowing I get the majority of it from the meat. There are still things that I do personally, and I'm going to do them. I don't care if somebody says that's not carnivore, that's fine. Everybody's journey is a little bit different. I don't think any of us are doing it perfectly for the next person. You have to figure out what works for you. So, like I said, if you like this, subscribe. If there's anything you want to go over, you have any questions, my email is also underneath my YouTube account. If you don't want to say anything on there and you just want it to be private, that's fine too. And I will definitely get back with you guys. So have a wonderful day. And as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat.